seconds, whatever it is. So.
Welcome, guys, to the Konquer podcast. Once again, I am your host, Chad Kratz, followed by my co-host, Mr. Jeff Brandt.
How we doing, folks?
Who is fresh back from vacation in Arizona.
A little refresh, a little vitamin D. Couldn't ask for anything better, man.
Suck.
I'll tell you.
I could have, but I didn't.
65 and sunny every day, and it was beautiful.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, it's good to have you back.
It's good to be back, brother.
So today, we kind of touched base a little bit on some of the stuff I've done recently, talking about some certifications I've done.
Yep.
So we kind of want to dive into a little bit of that. I mean, obviously you've got some shit going on, and generally speaking, my clientele comes to me for various reasons. Obviously, the main reason anybody who hires a trainer is for an aesthetic approach, but I think there's also that healthfulness approach as well. Especially when we're talking about somebody who's just had surgery or going to have surgery, there's methods and ways to manipulate and handle that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the reason why I thought this would be a great thing to talk about, and it's not to brag about Chad, right?
No, not at all. Never.
While I was on vacation, I'm down there with a brother of mine, Ed. He's a PT. We talk about him, right?
All the time.
And so that's, Ed and I were having this conversation, and he had brought that up that, he wishes once he's done with a client, especially the clients that want to get back to being more active, that he had an avenue to push them off to a personal trainer, athletic trainer, someone that could help take them beyond what he does, right? Because
absolutely,
in his own terms, his job is to get them back to a daily function.
Absolutely, right? and whatever that daily function is, like if an Olympic runner comes to you, you're gonna get them back to being an Olympic runner. That's your job. But no, you're absolutely right. There's kind of, especially in the United States, I think it's a little bit more prevalent. I'd have to fact check myself here, but I think it's a little bit more prevalent overseas to have that connection of, hey, you're done with your visits, but now you're going to go see my friend Jeff, who is going to continue this pathway to keep you moving forward to being healthy. And so, the certification I did was hosted by Barbell Rehab. So it was an online one. I'd actually love to go do it in person with them. Pretty intelligent stuff. So it's strength training the post-operative client. Okay. And what that looks like after a hip replacement, a shoulder replacement, a cervical back surgery, a lumbar back surgery. What does that look like after PT? Well, you look at most of the time after physical therapy, and they say this in the certification, it's kind of either you met your visits or, okay, cool, you can put that can on the shelf. We're done.
Yeah.
And I think most PTs would agree. There's no real finishing point there to get them, like, I've got you as far as I can get you, but where's that next point to go? Well, the next point to go is get you better than that so you can maybe exercise or do some physical activity stuff in your yard. You like to garden. Well, if your shoulder's still not working that great and it can only last an hour of real good activity before it's like, nope, I'm kind of stiff and it sucks.
You're not going to be out there very long.
You're not going to be out there very long. And I think it's cool, we had talked while you were gone, and we had talked about, kind of people giving you funny stares.
Yep.
So we know right now you're on a weight restriction.
Yeah, so down in, even on vacation, I'm still working out, right?
Absolutely. Gotta stay moving.
Can't break the habit. So down in Arizona, we're staying with my brother and whatnot, and we're going to the gym. And first day I'm there, I'm doing a bench day, right?
Yep.
And so you see me warming up, and I'm doing all my normal warm-ups that I would do if I was going to be benching 185, 225, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But now it's 55
pounds on the bar with a band.
And so I actually got approached by a gentleman down there who was extremely muscular, very good shape. He's a trainer down there.
Okay.
And, he was just trying to throw me some flack at first. He's like, hey, big guy, when are we going to throw some real weight in the bar? And I just kind of smiled. I said, right now this is real weight. Right, and so we got into that.
And then what was his response to that?
He's like, "Hey, man, if that's what you can do, good for you for coming in here, right? Because
you're here.
A lot of people wouldn't come in if they could only move this much weight. They would be embarrassed. And
absolutely.
Like you keep harping on me, even today when I was doing legs, slow down, feel the tension, get the form down, right? So that's where my focus was at, and we just got texting back and forth while I was down there. It's like, you know what? There's a lot of people who are in the same situation as me.
For sure.
Right? They had their PT that they went through.
Yeah.
And now it's, well, what's my next step? What can I do?
Absolutely.
And there are some practices across the country, you can see them on Instagram, that they do that next step, but it's not very prevalent in our area. Right?
No, and I don't think I think probably outside of somewhere like California, maybe Florida, your bigger cities, Phoenix, I think maybe you'd see it more there. Mm-hmm. I don't think we don't live in a small area by any means. I mean, there's 400,000 people here between the four cities, but so it's not a small area, but in the same token, I don't live in a city that has 3 million people in it.
No.
And so I think it's more prevalent out west, out east. And I think bridging that gap is ultimately important because, again, not everybody wants to be a weight trainer or a physical specimen, let's say. Mm-hmm. But I do think everybody, even unintentionally, wants to be healthy. I want to still be able to take care of myself and not rely on anybody. And, a lot of the time after these surgeries, they get you to a point where, a knee replacement surgery, after 2 weeks, you're fully weight bearing, full flexion extension. That was their job to get you there. And then you might have, 4 to 6 weeks of some type of PT in between there. But then they're like, okay, we got you full weight bearing. We got you walking. You're good to go. And I think for most, there's a, what's the term I'm trying to use here? I think there's a protection mentality there.
Oh, for sure.
Oh man, I just got this whole brand new joint. I don't want to blow it out. Well, the rationale of that actually is you're actually going to blow it out less if the musculature around the area is actually stronger and more fluid, right?
Yeah, can't let it get weak.
So if I'm 70 years old and I just got a knee replacement and I don't really do anything because my mentality is if I do anything, I'm going to blow the joint out and then I've got to go get more work done. It's actually kind of backwards because you're setting yourself up to have to go back in and get more work done because, we're talking titanium and polyethylene. The polyethylene is going to wear down if the musculature is not really protecting it from just grinding on itself. It's kind of why your knee ended up the way that it did anyway.
Yeah.
We weren't taking care of the musculature around the knee.
Yeah, because
the knee is ligamenture. That's what it is. There's no muscle in between there. It's ligaments.
How do you build around it?
ACL, PCL, LCL, MCL, and meniscus. That's it.
I've torn all those, by the way.
Yeah, we always talk about how you weren't smart before you met me.
Yeah, I tell you.
Not much has changed. I'm kidding.
It all depends.
But no, I think it's cool that you did get approached, and I think it's cool that the guy recognized immediately, something's off.
Yeah.
Like if I walked into a gym and I see a dude your size and you're doing 55 pounds, something immediately in my brain is going, something's different here. What's going on?
Yeah.
Luckily, you ran into somebody who was like, hey, bro.
A little knowledgeable.
What's going on here?
He had been in the game for a minute.
But
it's interesting you say that because one thing that you're always preaching is movement is health. Movement is
health.
And so
stagnation is death.
Even after my most recent surgery, I think it was 3 days post-op I was in here.
Yeah.
Just walking.
Yep.
Right? Still had a brace on.
I think I initiated that too.
Yep. And I was just literally walking in between the handrails on the treadmill, and I can't tell you, that definitely helped, right? And it was doing a little bit of stretching and whatnot, yeah. and even the surgeon said, hey, you can move 15 pounds at that point, right?
Yeah.
I was just walking just to get it going, so
yep.
It definitely helped me. So, as we talk through this, now I'm getting to a point where I've got 12 weeks left where I potentially will get released full duty, right?
Yeah.
And so now you and I have been texting back and forth talking about, hey, let's get a workout regimen going for the next 8 to 10 weeks, and let's start focusing on that. So how are you approaching that? And we can talk about my case a little bit, but then we also
it's kind of good to talk in specifics.
We also have a couple other gym members that are going to be going through some things as well, and so let's just hit on a couple of these on. This is how you are going to use this certification, your education, your background to get people moving.
Yeah, and I think, so to preface that, you've been on a 12-week program with me for a year and a half before surgery.
Yep.
Right? So it's not like we're new to this, right?
No.
We've been kind of plotting and being methodical this whole time.
Yeah.
And now we just got to carry that forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I think about everything, I think about strength training. Anybody that's come to me, I train a guy in a wheelchair. I've trained a guy with transverse myelitis. I've trained, a couple folks that have had some foot, knee surgeries, MS.
So for the folks that are watching and listening, because I know what transverse myelitis is, but they may not.
So transverse myelitis is a very rare disease that basically attacks essentially the myelin sheath of the spine. So you end up with lesions all over your spinal cord. This gentleman, obviously not going to name names for HIPAA reasons.
Yep.
But this gentleman, he really went through it, man. He was in a coma for 18 days. He essentially died, was brought back to life, had a terrible nursing staff that treated him horribly. And, was in a wheelchair for 18 months and told, you will never walk again.
And then the poor bastard meets you.
And then the funny thing is I meet him and he's standing there with a cane. And I'm like, I don't see the problem, man. You're walking. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, but it's not great. And I'm like, yeah, but you were given zero opportunity. You have a 0% chance, Jeff, of ever moving your arms again.
You beat the odds.
You're doing it, dude. I don't get it. So it's definitely, I always tell them, hey, I'm not going to tell you that I can guarantee you're going to walk better again. Mm-hmm. I'm not telling you, I can guarantee I can get you stronger. I can guarantee that. I know I can get you stronger. But I can't guarantee the outcome that possibly you're looking for.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, we're setting expectations. Right?
Have to be realistic.
We have to be realistic at some point. But I think that's my whole take initially, is I'm looking at whole body strength and movement, mm-hmm. right? Is that intact? And we can sit here and talk about your case specifically.
Yeah.
And would you say at this point in your transition from heavy weightlifting to surgery to post-op to now, because you've done no PT, correct?
Correct.
So where would you say, even along that entire journey, 2 years, where is your movement at? Where is your strength at? Where is your current, not understanding, level of, I'm not squeezing something.
So
I'm not moving fluidly.
Yeah, so it's easily the most engaged I've ever been.
Okay.
Right? And so what I mean by that is, over the last 2 years, it started off as, I don't want to lose any strength whatsoever, Chad. I don't care that I'm the only guy in here at times. I still want to outbench everybody else or out shoulder press everybody else.
You wanted to you versus you in the hardest way possible.
Yep. And I would say that since my surgery, I have been more intertwined with my movement than I had ever been in the past. And even when I started doing basic body weight stuff with you, when we started programming my workouts, I felt really good, was able to do, I was getting up to 125 push-ups a day.
Yeah.
I was able to do, it's not a lot, 4 to 5 free pull-ups, and then I was doing everything else assisted.
Yeah.
I was able to do dips unassisted, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot that I was doing.
And we know dips was a problem.
Dips was
for you
a
before.
Major problem, right?
Yeah.
But since that surgery, I just feel like, if I bench 55 pounds to 65 pounds, I can get a better workout doing that because I know exactly where I'm supposed to be squeezing. I know exactly where I'm supposed to be holding. I know where I'm supposed to be bracing, right?
Yeah.
Still messing around with the feet a little bit, trying to get that proper foot angle and whatnot. But even today, I did squats, right? And I can finally point out in my own videos, and I record everything, and it's not because I'm some gym bro. It's because I literally want to know what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah,
right. If I don't have somebody there telling me I'm doing something wrong, how do I know what I'm doing?
Absolutely.
And it's literally gotten to the point where I know exactly what I'm doing wrong, and I can correct it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that before my surgery, and I thought
Absolutely.
I was at a point where it's like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing wrong in this bench, that deadlift, this squat, whatever. Now it's like I can recognize it.
Yeah.
And I can recognize it in other people. And it's not just like the nuances, like if someone's doing a shoulder press or
has the
dumbbell
feet
press,
turned out or doing something different. It's not the nuance.
It's I can look at everything that they're doing and be like, wow,
yeah.
It's because I know what I'm supposed to do, right? So I'm more in tune than I have ever been since I started weightlifting.
Well, and as we talk about this, we also have to acknowledge I always say a certain phrase, and it's, consistency over perfection. Mm-hmm. Because if we had to define perfect movement, what does that look like? It doesn't really exist. Yeah. If we're talking squat, it's femur length, it's hip anatomy. Like, there's things there that just aren't the same in everybody. So what is perfect movement?
That's for every individual, though.
Every individual. What is perfect movement?
Yeah, it's what's feeling right, what feels good, what allows you to get that stretch, that pull.
And feel the muscle and tension and that kind of thing. And even me, I haven't missed a day in the gym in probably 17 years. I still go back to the fundamentals at every quarter. All right, you know what? Something's off. Let me drop all this weight off. Let me see where I'm squeezing. Am I shifting to the right? Am I shifting to the left? Is my core engaged? Is my breathing, fluid? Am I moving properly, right? For my body. I do that so frequently, right? Just to ensure that when I am doing the heavier lifts, that I'm doing them correctly.
Yeah.
And so I think the approach for any client, somebody that's just trying to put muscle on, whatever it is, I have to meet you where you are, right? And I think as trainers, we miss that sometimes. We try to put people where we are. Mm-hmm. No, all jokes aside, Jeff, we try to put you through a workout I'm doing right now, because I'm like, yeah, dude, you just got to do what I'm doing.
I wouldn't be walking.
You'd be in a bad place. Yeah. And that's what we have to remember. I have to meet you where you're at in fitness, right? Mm-hmm. I train a lot of older clients. I have to meet them where they're at. So sometimes, I wrote a workout out, but I might go way off book because I need to fix something first, right? Because I got to build that foundation before we build the house. So, when I say this about strength, and I say this all stuff because I'm a sidebar here real quick. I don't know if you saw it. It might have been on Facebook, but Facebook sometimes posts articles, and the article was Orange Theory innovates the strength gain. And I'm like, how have they innovated something that has been the same for 1,000 years?
Yeah. What are they doing that's different?
So now they're doing, I believe that, I'm going to probably get this wrong because, I kind of saw red when I, saw this. But it's strength 50 or something like that. So it's a strength class. But if you look at it, it's not really a strength class, because if you look at the studies have shown that group fitness is the most ineffective form of fitness for whatever reason. Now, there is a psychosocial part to it that is effective, right? Absolutely. Being with the community, being with like-minded individuals, that is a thing. But when we're talking about actually attaining results, it's the most ineffective.
Yeah.
And even if we look at the model of something like an Orange Theory, it's all cardio-based, right? Cardio does not burn fat. Never has, never will. It does not do it. There's some nuanced results that you will get if you start running and you have done no running. But it just makes you more efficient at burning calories. I don't want to be efficient at burning calories.
I can oxygenate better, right, in between lifts and whatnot, if I can get more oxygen in my blood. Right?
And that's what cardio is for. Heart, lungs, vascular system.
Yeah.
If we're talking about, and there's a whole other thing. I actually meant to send you a book I just started. It's The Resistance Revolution by Sal DiStefano from Mind Pump. And he talks about how we think about running as weight loss and all these things, and it's not. And we've gone away from the actual legitimate science of resistance training being good for losing weight and maintain for long term, right? Staying lean, but also the health benefits of having that much muscle. And what you get into is, when you're overdoing cardio, you're actually, because the dosage is so off, you're actually now negatively affecting your health. You're causing calcification of the heart. You're causing more things that are going to cause cardiovascular disease because you're doing too much. You're stressing the heart too much. So you think you're being healthy, but you're actually doing the inverse. And, runners tend to look soft.
Yeah.
And that's because you're not burning fat. You're actually losing muscle at the same rate.
Yeah.
So even when we talk about something like diet, your diet is meant to fuel muscle, right? So the first thing your body does, if you're not eating enough food to fuel the muscle, it gets rid of the muscle.
Yep.
It says, I don't need this. It's too metabolically demanding. I don't need it.
Got to dispose of something.
It's got to dispose of something so it can keep you running. So crash dieting, and, which is what we touched on initially in our first podcast, crash dieting and too much work. So you're actually not signaling muscle building. So we have to think about that in a rehab approach the same way. Mm-hmm. But I have to meet you where you're at, right? If you're having, if you had knee surgery, right? I'm not going to start you on squats that are knee driven. Just not going to do it. Yeah. We're probably going to start from a top up, right? We're going to grab a box. We're going to sit on that box, and it might only be 4 to 6 inches of movement. But we're going to start there so we can drive into the hips and stay out of the knee. Eventually, that pattern, as we work down, we do end up working into the knee, but we patternize it so that, and structure it so that the knee stays good. Mm-hmm. So we drive into the pelvis, we get the glutes active.
And it creates that muscle memory, so as you're doing that, you're thinking actively when you're going down. Right?
Absolutely, and you're thinking about that. So now when we're talking about you who has a cervical injury, mm-hmm. right? A cervical injury, as soon as that weight restriction is lifted, we're not going to go, all right, man, let's throw 155 on the bar and let's just go for it.
Yeah.
No. We've been at 55 pounds for 3 months now. Mm-hmm. We're going to still be going up in increments. You might get to 75 pounds. Mm-hmm. And again, generally I'm here when you're lifting.
Yeah.
And on my part, it's going to take some slight observation of you because I want to see what you're doing, right? And if that means you got to send me video, then you're going to send me video so that I can see what you're doing. But that's ultimately for me. I have to meet you where you're at currently. So we're scaling everything back. I just showed you a banded bench press a week ago. Why did I do that? Well, if I have the bands pulling this way, I have to counteract them and control the bar here without going back up. So there's a structure to that. And everything is going to be methodical. So we generally have had you at a 12-week program for quite some time now.
Yeah.
We're probably going to monitor that more in an 8-week fashion. That way we can make changes on the fly if we need to, right? 12 weeks sometimes is too long. So 8 weeks, man, you know what? At the end of 4, things are starting to look good. So for this last 4, let's go up another 5%, 10%.
Let's make some adjustments, right?
Let's make some adjustments. And ultimately that is to keep the same thing from reoccurring again. Because that's what we want to avoid ultimately.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the end goal for me, right? Like, I don't want to get to a point again with my spine. I mean, there's probably going to be another surgery in the future, right? Potentially. Just because of how the body works and whatnot. But if I could not, advance that like I did this last time, it was 3 years. 3 years, right?
And if we can adapt your diet, and when I say diet, I'm not talking about putting you on a diet. I'm talking about changing the things you eat day to day, making sure that we're fueling enough with the right things. But ultimately, I think the goal for you has always been the goal for you, to pack on muscle.
Yeah.
Lean muscle, right? We can talk about how fitness isn't truly for aesthetics all day long. But ultimately, there is a thing that I want the aesthetic.
Oh, dude, I just want to look good naked for the wife.
Oil me up. I'll be your butler. I'll make you a sandwich. Hey, you can make the money. It's okay.
Sign me up right now.
Sign me up.
You hear that, Holly?
But ultimately, I think if we chase good health, good aesthetics will come. Mm-hmm. If we chase good aesthetics, good health never happens.
Yeah.
And I think that holds true. And so I think focusing on getting you stronger, putting more lean muscle on your body that's more disease resistant, that's more anti-inflammatory. Inflammation in your neck, bad thing. Inflammation anywhere in your body for too long is a bad thing. But it makes you look younger. It makes you feel younger. It lets you move like you're younger. Mm-hmm. We have a muscle problem in this country. We don't have enough of it. We have too little muscle. So as our elderly are aging, they're frail, right? No one ever talks about how weight resistance training. Resistance training is anything that adds outside tension to your body. So if a push-up is resistance training because I'm pushing my body against the floor, I'm adding resistance to it. Bands, dumbbells, cables, barbells. No one ever talks about the benefits of bones. I think the stat on osteopenia is like 40% of Americans, which generally leads to osteoporosis. Like, and I have to double check that number. I believe that's the number. But you look across the board, and you can look at any injury, any structure of injury, and probably about 20 to 30% of people in the world, not just Americans, but in the world, have probably experienced it by the age of 70.
Yeah.
A cervical injury, a lumbar injury, knee replacement, hip replacement, shoulder replacement. Somebody has had something. I mean,
I look at myself at the age of 36. I'm 7 surgeries into it, right? And I'm 36.
36. And we have another guy we know that's, I think, right along the same age as you, if not younger. 10 surgeries in, right? So, I mean, there's nothing to say that you can't get some of what you lost back, right? And that's...
But that's where I'm going to interrupt you because, and I know where you're going. That's not my focus, right?
Yeah.
Because we talked about this from the get-go. Like, my focus has always been more weight, right? I want to be
I want to bench press 400 pounds for no fucking reason.
Biggest, baddest, strongest, whatever it is. But since my injury and since I've been given the go, that's no longer my focus. My focus is the movement because I want to be able to do this for as long as I can, as well as I can.
Facts.
And so, that's what I'm excited about for this next 8 weeks is to... Like you said, we're going to stick at, first 4 weeks doing what we've been doing, right? Yeah. Seeing how everything's moving. And maybe it's a 5% increment. Maybe it's only 1%.
Yeah.
But if I know I can maintain the form, then I'm heading in the right direction. And, when you asked the question earlier, how in tune am I with, my movements and whatnot, that's where my head is at mentally, is where right now I don't care about the weight.
Yeah.
I care about the movement.
It's funny you say that, though, because that's such a mind shift for you.
Oh, 100%. Dude, that's 180.
It's refreshing for me to hear it because I've only been trying to drill that into you for 3 years now. But the fact of the matter is that, unfortunately, it took this, let's call it secondary injury to an injury you already had, to turn that knob on and say, man, okay, I've really got to stop beating my head against the wall and chasing this weight. It's not conducive to my health.
And that this is going to be off topic, but it's going to be full circle, right? And so that's the main reason, not the main reason, but that's one of the driving reasons we wanted to start this podcast so we could start talking about some of these messages, right?
Health for the average person.
Yeah, and if we would have started this 2 years ago, I would have been sitting in the same chair, probably looked a little bit more toned, right? And I would have been telling you, all right, man, like the goal is by the end of the year, we need to be repping 405 to 410, and it needs to be for reps.
Yeah.
Legitimately. And I would have said, no leg days, right?
Yep. Upside down Dorito.
All presses. Upside down Dorito. That was my goal. But now if I can get anybody who listens to this to just take away that message that if you want to be strong, that's great, right? Yeah. But do it with a purpose. Because I'm that perfect example. I was not the strongest guy in the gym, but I was more in the middle of the road, right?
Yeah.
And look where it led me, right?
It led you to being ego-driven.
Yep. And it led me to do things not properly.
Yeah.
So that's one of the main messages that I hope someone takes away from this. If you're listening, you're watching, whatever it is don't let your ego get in the way because you're going to end up like me. Like I said, I'm 36 years old. I got 3 daughters, a wife. I want to be able to walk them down the aisle or whatever they choose to do. But I let my ego get the best of me. And so that's why...
You got a long life ahead of you.
Yeah, and like, I don't know if being down in Phoenix and being a very large commercial gym and, still focusing on, 55-pound bench press. I was squatting 65 pounds.
Because you could have easily towed the bar and gone, looked at buddy over here, throwing weight and been like, fuck it.
I could have let my ego get the best of me and been like, it's not going to hurt just once, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't. And so I thought about that. We drove out there and we drove back and, it's a 25-hour drive. So I'm just thinking, and I don't know if I had like that
epiphany.
Yeah, but it's like, there's no award for being the strongest. There's nothing that's going to benefit me from trying to push as hard as I can. But if I can do it with a purpose and I can feel what I'm doing, right, I'm going to build that lean muscle.
Yeah.
It's going to come even quicker.
And at this point, man, at 38, almost 39, I've competed a little bit in some stuff, just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get anything out of it really that I thought was beneficial to me.
Yeah.
I just kind of felt like crap. Like it didn't translate to me feeling good. Now I do what I want to do and I program all my own stuff and I feel good.
Yeah.
Most days, And I think that's the thing, man. Like, we got a long time ahead of us, and especially when we're talking about clients that are you're kind of the outlier.
Yeah.
Per se. When we're talking about injuries and surgeries and things like that, but when we're talking about people in their 60s plus, I mean, you're talking shoulder replacements, knee replacements, hip replacements, knee ablations, all these different things that even I didn't have a ton of experience with at first, and I had to look them up. I didn't know what they were.
Had to do the research.
But now I think every ideology that I've formulated from my education, from training people for 10 years, for doing what I did as exercise rehab specialist, I think all of those things have culminated into kind of thinking about fitness as a generalization to everybody, but also as an individualization. Right?
Okay.
So exercise is good for the general population. The problem lies in it's not individualized enough to be specific to the individual person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we're having an inundation of people getting injured and hurt in such high amounts. And then the coaches not really knowing what to do with that person.
Yeah.
And I've run into plenty of coaches that I don't know personally that steered people really in the wrong direction, saying that they were experts in plantar fasciitis and experts in these things. I'm like, but you're not, though, because you're not a podiatrist. So you're not an expert in plantar fasciitis. That's a podiatrist. It's a foot doctor.
You read an article. You did a little bit of Google research.
You might have done a certification on it. That doesn't make you the expert.
Yeah.
And even me, man, I will tell you all day long. No matter how much of an expert I wouldn't even say I claim to be, that other people claim that I am.
Mm-hmm.
I always think of myself as still the student. I still have so much more to learn.
Yeah.
And you've heard this term before. It's imposter syndrome, right? Sometimes I forget the impact that I've had on a particular client's life. Because I don't want to say it's a thankless job, but most of the time you're just having fun, lifting weights, shooting the shit about your day. It doesn't really ever come up, and then the moment it does, it's kind of like, whoa, okay, wait a minute. I actually do impact these people's lives in a major way. And, ultimately, I think that's why I do it. I've got some clients right now that are struggling with exercise and struggling when before they weren't, and life happens, man. Life is going to happen 365 days a year for however many years you stay alive. It's going to happen. So we really have to develop a way to work it into life in a way that's not super restrictive, because it doesn't have to be. And when you're dealing with the rehab client, that's even doubly true, because they're going to come in, and this, with the mentality of, man, I feel terrible. I don't want to do this. This is, it's already hard enough to get in shape.
Yeah.
But then you have an injury and it's even harder.
Yeah, you got to reset, and that's
the hard part.
It is, but I think, if you can, as a trainer and as a friend, as a coach, if you can mentally be in their court, though, it makes that much simpler.
And that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what, movement is what lights my brain up. It's what makes me excited about my day, whether that be with a new client or client that I've trained 500 times. That's the thing that lights my brain up and makes me, let's say, happy. Mm-hmm. And so, the point of doing this particular certification was it's more in line with that. It's more in line with how people move and looking at structure and looking at why injuries happen and why sometimes they reoccur and how to prevent those things. And I think meeting a physical therapist who is a doctor, or even a PTA, a physical therapist assistant, they're still a licensed profession.
Yep.
And meeting them somewhere in the middle and saying, hey guys, I know their visits are up, but let me take over.
Absolutely.
And I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to hurt them. I'm not going to take them. You're not going to hand them off to me and we're going to do a 400-pound squat tomorrow.
And I don't think anybody would honestly turn that down.
Right? No.
It's the next step of the progression to help with that rehabilitation process. And
even further to that, there's been more things that have happened here recently. Just today, I got an email from NASM that they've partnered with TrueMed. So now if a client can qualify for it, they can use their HSA card and get reimbursed. So they pay me, their HSA reimburses them.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. And it structures the field. I think this is great for the field of personal training because I think it adds a level of professionalism to the field that we don't have.
Okay.
And I think it adds hey, you can trust certain professionals to take over for you, and it's okay. I think that's prevalent in a lot of fields in the United States. I think medical doctors to chiropractors to physical therapists, I don't think there's enough intertwinement there. Everybody thinks that their way is the best, and there's really this weird thing of like, oh yeah, man, you don't want to go do that, man. That's voodoo. That doesn't work, man. We got to cut you open. And it's like, but no, it's not voodoo. It's like 200 years of science. Like, you can't call it voodoo.
Yeah, I'd rather surgery be the last option.
Absolutely. At any time. And we've talked about jokingly, I'm waiting for robot parts. Oh, I've been trying to have superpowers my entire life. So the moment I can walk into the doctor's say, okay, sir, I'm here for my upgrade. I want the laser vision. Go ahead and put shock absorbers in these knees.
I tell you what, I just don't want the pain. Sign me up for that.
You just take that?
Yeah, I don't even care what the body looks like, man. You can just take this brain, put it in something else. I'm ready to roll.
Put it in a 65 Chevy. It's okay.
It does not matter to me. If I can just not feel the pain, I will be happy.
Absolutely. And I think ultimately, that's where we've gotten away from exercise in bringing rehab and everything and kind of summarizing what we've just talked about for this past half an hour. I think that's where we've gotten away from remembering that exercise is medicine. Mm-hmm. And exercise does things to the human body that no other thing on the planet can do, right? Independently of diet, independently of anything else, right? Exercise has so many physiological effects on the human body. And we tend to forget that. We tend to forget that it's good for bones. We tend to forget that it's good for mood, psychologically. I mean, you're looking at, a depressed population over the last several years that has grown. And exercise has been shown to be 3 times more effective than any medication.
Yeah.
Why aren't we promoting that?
As we should be.
As we should be. And so I think that's kind of the precipice of this thing is exercise is medicine. Fitness is healthcare. And that's what message has to be more broadcast. Mm-hmm. And it's a generalization. Most people are not trying to go to the Arnold. Most people are not trying to go to the CrossFit Games. Most people are just trying to play with their kids, their grandkids, and move throughout their life and do what they want to do. You don't have to go crazy to do that. You just have to have the structure and do it properly.
Dude, I couldn't have said that message any better myself because I feel where people struggle to start when it comes to, exercise being healthcare is they're looking at social media and they're seeing all these people that
tell you what not to do.
Yeah.
But none of them have a degree or here's the deal. Anything.
If you're feeling down, if your body's aching and you were to just go for a walk, right?
You'd feel better.
Doesn't matter if it's cold, doesn't matter if it's hot. You just go for a walk.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you you're running. You're just out there walking. You're going to feel better.
You're going to feel better because you're moving.
You're moving. Yeah. Blood's flowing, right? And so I mean that right there is one of the best messages that needs to be promoted. It truly does. It's not said enough, right?
Yeah, we tend to associate exercise with, for lack of a better term, excellence. You have to be excellent at everything. I don't know anybody that's excellent at everything.
If that was the case, I wouldn't have had 2 neck surgeries.
Right.
Right?
And we wouldn't have a population of younger, I'm going to say more younger men, vastly injuring themselves in the weight room because they just don't know what they're doing.
They're chasing something.
And, and I'm not going to knock any high school coaches or anything like that, because they have a job. Mm-hmm. And their job is to get you on the field Friday night. That's their job. Performance, right? Their job is not to make sure that 20 years after high school, you can still move effectively. Their job is Friday night.
Yeah.
They've got blinders on for Friday night.
Man, it's crazy that you said that because after I had this most recent surgery, I went back to my hometown for a homecoming football game.
Yeah.
And one of my high school football coaches, he got out of coaching for a little bit, but then he got back into coaching.
Sure.
Very close with the individual. Have a lifelong relationship with them. And I remember just waiting after the game, and he's walking off the field, and he sees me, and he walks over and he starts crying. I'm like, Coach, what are you crying for?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm following your story on Facebook, this most recent surgery, and he's like, I feel it's my fault. He's like,
oh wow, you didn't tell me this actually. That's amazing.
It literally just popped up. He's like, it's my fault because I was the one that pushed you so hard in the weight room. I pushed you so hard in the field, tried to be the best.
I gave you that mentality,
right?
Damn.
And I sat there and talked to him for probably 20 minutes. 32 degrees outside in the middle of November. I'm like, Coach, this wasn't your fault, right?
Yeah.
This was primarily my fault.
You did your job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So it's where I took over from. But yeah, it's just crazy to think about that. It's just...
That's wild, dude.
Yeah.
Like I've been out of high school 20 years, and if I had somebody come up to me, hey man, the reason I've been following your shit and the reason this happened is my fault. That's mind blowing, dude. And I think, we can go back to your mentality shift. And I think that's the thing that carries you forward, right? Mm-hmm. Like at a certain point, we have to realize we're not 20 anymore. Men, we're generally the most knuckleheaded at that.
Yeah.
I'm impervious to harm. You can't beat me. You can't hurt me, right? Now, sometimes we joke about stuff like that, but sometimes it can be serious too. We can, look at that in the lines of, I haven't been sick in 20 years. I just don't get sick anymore. And that's not me boasting. That's not me doing anything. But obviously something I'm doing is aiding in that, thing where I move every day.
Yeah.
I try to eat as healthy as I can, but I still eat candy from time to time. I still have a donut from time to time. I still eat pizza. It's just I don't do it all the time, right? It's monitoring it most of the time and then living your life, being joyous. Comparison is the thief of joy. We said 100%. It on episode 1 or 2.
100%.
And that's accurate. If I compared myself to every person that I see on social media or every person I see in the gym or every person I see walk around the earth, I'm only stealing my own joy, right? If I just got out of neck surgery and I'm looking around, everybody else is moving their neck just fine.
Yeah.
Oh man, wish I could move my neck. You find that it drives you to this negative place. And I think when focusing on the rehab client, that's the other thing we got to pay attention to is mentality. Because if I don't have your mentality right, you're going to falter and fall every step of the way.
Yeah.
Every step.
Or worse.
Worse.
What am I going to do when you're not there?
Yeah. And that's a lot of, in general, that's a lot of being a personal trainer anyway. I mean, there's a lot of times I'm like, damn, man, if I could just monitor you 24 hours a day. If I could be in here for every single one of Jeff's lifts, I could ensure that he's doing it properly. I can make sure nothing bad happens to him.
Or if you can install the mentality of, hey, slow down, control, do it right, then when you're here, you're here. And when you're not, you don't have necessarily that worry.
And I'll tell you what, man, I love it when I've been the topic of a lot of dinner tables. And I say that in a way, a lot of my clients, will come Monday morning and, oh man, we had dinner Friday night, the wife and the kids, and you came up and we were just talking about you and whatever. And it's like,
asshole.
Like, God, I hate that guy, but God, he gets me to the gym, But then I get messages, man, and that I'm on people's mind. Like, someone will say, yeah, I was going to do this, but then your face popped up in my head and I heard your voice say, no, don't do it. And I didn't do it. But then I get messages, from clients that, one of my first clients was dealing with some shoulder stuff and I really helped him on the rehab side of that when I was still working for the chiropractor. And then after that, when I started this and wanted to do training, he was one of my first clients, and he's still one of my clients. He's a remote client now, but we still talk almost 3-4 times a week. And, probably a week ago, I've switched him. He's an older gentleman. Switched him to this full body workout. A little easier on the joints. You can go a little harder because it's one muscle group, one exercise for each muscle group.
Yeah.
You're not doing 32 sets of chest. You're not going to blow out the joints, right?
Sounds like a great time, though.
It does. Everybody loves chest day. But, he messages me and he says, man, I've never felt better than what I have on this full body workout you've had me on for the past couple months. And we've switched some numbers and some volume and some stuff around and some exercises and that kind of thing. But we've kind of stuck to this full body, kind of regimen. And he's saying, man, I took a suit jacket out of my closet the other day. I haven't worn it in years. And he's like, I almost ripped it.
Hell yeah.
You know, because I'm just feeling that good. Or a client who's in skiing for the first time in 2 years. My legs feel so much better than they did 2 years ago when I did this. Like, those messages for me, man, those are what do it for me. Like, a client telling me, man, I've had pain in my hip for 10 years. And just with the mobility work we've been doing and the strengthening of the muscles around, it's still there, but it's less. That is a game changer for that dude's life. Because he's been in pain for 10 years.
Yeah.
To be like, man, I'm still in pain, but that's not bad. I can deal with that. I think that's the kicker for me, man. Those are the messages I love. When someone is thinking about me and I'm not there, that's crazy to me. That I've impacted them enough that, you know, they saw my face. Because I joke about diets. And I say, you know what? Just don't eat like an asshole most of the time.
Just don't suck.
And I have somebody come and go, Chad, I like an asshole last weekend. But I mean, you popped into my head for a minute, but I still wanted that bourbon, though. And I'm like, well, at least you thought about me.
Yeah.
You almost thought about not doing it.
The good angel almost won, but you let the devil take control.
You let the bad demon angel take over. So I think that's the thing, man. You got to meet people where they're at. And especially when it comes to rehab, you got to really dial into what the real issue is, movement-wise especially, because you're going to have movement pattern changes because now you've been surgically operated on. You have a disc in your neck that's not yours.
Yeah.
It's artificial. So inherently that changes dynamically the way your body moves and adapts. So we have to think about that in every mode of the exercise and workout regimen that we do.
Absolutely.
So we've got to work on that because we got to get you back on a program because we're pretty close to being released.
Yeah, so it's I think March 16th or 17th, something like that, right? So, it's close.
It's coming, man.
You know, and
so we got to discuss some things and talk about that. And again, we're gonna keep the people updated on where you are in this journey.
Yeah, I definitely think once we get that program set up, I'm going to do a better job of putting on the Instagram page of just a few of the lifts that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I welcome any feedback, criticism that somebody has out there, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you can't do it as good as me, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. And if your first comment is, well, where's the weight, man?
Yeah.
You could just go ahead and delete yourself from my page. Don't follow.
Like I said, I've had a 180 degree mind change on that, right? Like my thoughts are, let's just get moving better.
Yeah. And that's what it should be, man. You got 3 daughters, man. You got a lot to think about going forward in life. So I think that's true.
Well, you know, and I got to keep you in line too. So let's be honest.
Man, you got to keep me going, bro. Because every once in a while, I need somebody to flick me in the back of the head or something to wake me up. But you know, man, I think that again, I think this wraps it up really well. Of you, no matter if it's a rehab client or whatever, we have to meet you where you're at, and that's our job as trainers. We're guides. We're your Sherpa through the mountains. We're trying to take you on the pathway that's not necessarily the least resistance, but a pathway that keeps you healthy and doing what you want to do for the remainder of your life. Yeah, and hopefully once you leave us, you keep that with you.
Yep.
Right? And, so I think that's a thing. And I think this next show, so we're on, God, what are we on now? Episode 5?
So this is 5. Next one's going to be 6.
So next one's 6. And I think, we've talked about this. We're going to kind of start having some guests and doing some other things here. So, I just want to throw it out there, guys. Make sure you tune in for the next episode.
Yep.
We're going to have my good friend, one of my best friends, my brothers, Brandon Chasen on the show. He is a professional bodybuilder. He is a 3 pro card holder at one point. I think he narrowed it down to 1 now. But, he's a natural bodybuilder. And I think, we're just going to talk to him about how he sees the state of the industry and how he approaches bodybuilding, because I think he approaches it in a more holistic, kind of natural way that I think a lot of up and coming dudes, women that want to do bodybuilding would learn a lot from his expertise. And I say expertise because I truly think that man is an expert. So we're gonna have him on the show for episode 6. We're gonna chop it up with him, and kind of talk about his upcoming season as well. He took a year off So he's going back into season this year. And I think there's going to be some great things for him. He won about 2-3 shows last year, or the year previous, that he was competing. So, and he's bulked up, and I'm excited to see what he does, and I'm excited to see what he's going to bring to the show. Cause
I definitely think the audience will appreciate that, because he actually has, for a bodybuilder, he has kind of the same mindset you do.
Yeah.
Which
and we talk all the time and collab all the time on movement. So
and in the world of social media, you don't normally see that with today's bodybuilder. So it's kind of refreshing to get Brandon in here and talk to him, because he's not the guy that's going to tell you to push all the weight in the world.
No. He's going to tell you to at least structurally do it correctly. And if we collab on videos all the time. He sends me videos of his clients and says, "Hey man, I think I'm seeing this. What do you see?"
Yeah.
And that's been, a great relationship to build. And I love that dude. He was at my wedding. He was one of my best men. So, that dude is definitely, family. So we're going to have him on the show next time. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up there, guys. Make sure you guys are following us on social media. Links are at the bottom. Make sure you're liking, subscribing to the show. Make sure you're getting it out there to your friends, family, and other people.
Absolutely.
Watching two jackasses, talk about regular fitness for regular people.
Yep. Two guys in the Midwest just talking about everyday life.
Everyday life. Yeah, you got your shirt on right now. Do the fucking work. So with that, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Have a great evening. It is the PM here, so we're going to wrap it up, get home, eat some dinner.
Yep.
And, first two rules of the gym, just don't die.
And just don't suck.
Have a great night, guys.